Celtics tandem of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Too much for OKC to handle. The duo combined for 34 points in the first half as Oklahoma City's losing streak has reached double digits after a 132-123 loss to Boston despite a fourth quarter push led by Trey Mann. Watch out for Boston quietly climbing the standings, currently fourth in the East. On that note, we welcome in my girl, Monica McNutt. Good morning. Good morning. Good to have you with us.
What's happening, y'all?
We will get to you in just a second. I'm going to start with JJ here. JJ, are the Celtics the team to beat now in the East?
I don't think they are. I've been saying this for the last few weeks. Miami is, to me, the most dangerous team in the East. Last night's loss was a little concerning, obviously losing to Philly without Joel and without James Harden. But I think we've all overlooked the Bucks. They're 32-9 when the big three play. Mm-hmm. They just got Brook Lopez back. They're the defending champs. To me, those two teams are probably the two best teams in the East.
Miami and Milwaukee?
Miami and Milwaukee. Okay. Celtics are great. Best defensive team in the league. They've been on a tear. They're 27-7 since January 6th. Right. They're great. My concern with them in a playoff series is the nature of their offense. It's not their defense. They're so disruptive. They switch 1 through 5. They take you out of what you're trying to run. But the real issue to me is half-court offense. The nature of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum creating tough shots and them really not having a high-volume knockdown shooter. They've got two guys shooting over league average, Peyton Pritchard and Grant Williams, but those aren't high-volume guys. And as I know from my own career, getting spot-up playoff threes is a very different thing than regular season spot-up threes.
I feel where you're coming from, but I'm going to respectfully disagree.
All right.
And I'm going to tell you that I know you're trying to be slick because, see, when people are debating, Molly, I don't know why you haven't figured this out yet. So when they're going up against me,
teach me,
when
please.
they're going up against me, yeah, I am.
I don't watch enough debates over the last 6 years.
No, you just
10 hours a week.
You just choose to ignore me when you want, and I'm just not letting you get away with that today.
Go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is that JJ tried to pull the okie doke. So what happens is he wants to make the argument for Milwaukee and Miami.
Yeah.
Knowing I'm going to make my argument about Boston. But he talked about Boston. It's not going to work because you didn't do it with enough passion and enough validity as far as I'm concerned. The Boston Celtics could potentially win this conference. I'm telling you this right now.
But I agree with you on that, but are they the team to beat?
Right now, I think they are. Right now. That could change because it's fluid.
Wasn't a lot of confidence in that argument.
Let me explain. Because it's the season, and you got to wait. It's 82 games. I'm being very serious here. Over the last 22 games, they've had a 9-game winning streak, a 5-game winning streak, and now a 4-game winning streak. Over the last 22 games, these brothers show up. And when you talk about what they do defensively, here's why we can't ignore that. Come playoff basketball, I like you. Sometimes I don't like the system, especially at the beginning of the season. Boston, I totally agree with you. They were one of the worst teams to watch. Jason Tatum, it's your turn. Jaylen Brown, it's your turn. We'll squeeze Marcus Smart in every now and then. Now, Marcus Smart called them out. Then ultimately they had to have a team meeting. Then ultimately Tatum and Brown had to get together, and they had to be committed to playing together because you obviously need a tandem in the NBA if you're going to have any kind of really sustained success. But Udoka, what he has done, I can't say enough. This guy is a legitimate top 2 coach of the year candidate. When you look at what he has done, this team, look at them defensively. They're like a bunch of piranhas. They switch everywhere. You've got 5 guys. They get out on shooters better than anybody that I have seen. Now we come to Miami and Milwaukee to bring up your point. It ain't about Giannis, because Giannis going to do what he does in the inside and in the open court, although he's suspect from the perimeter. But we know Giannis is going to give you his numbers. Jrue Holiday, Middleton, what they can give you, who's a team that could combat that because of their defensive prowess? That would be the Boston Celtics. When you look at Miami, with Hero, with Butler, even with Bam, because he's really an undersized, big, very athletic, great in open court, stuff like that. But you got a Robert Williams, a guy like that there, who can make some noise for you. The pickup of White has really brought this team together as well and elevated their play defensively. And in the meantime, while all of that has transpired, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown has elevated their level of play. So I want to see it be more consistent. Please don't get me wrong, because you weren't that way at the beginning of the season. You're flowing now over the last 30-plus games. I get all of that. The playoffs are a different beast. But when it comes to the playoffs, you got to remember, the game slows down a little bit. You don't get as many open court opportunities. Defense are able to get back, set their defense right, and what have you. We know this about playoff basketball. And nobody wants Boston to do that. Because if Boston does that, that makes their defense even more formidable.
Okay.
And that's how I look at it.
All right. Monica, get in here.
All right, so I'm on Team JJ this morning. And Stephen A., here's what I would like to point out about this Celtics team. Because of the three of us, I had the privilege during this, or one of the games that disrupted the win streak, to be on the ground when Boston hosted the Dallas Mavericks. My wonderful radio partner, George Sedano, we had the radio call. It was delightful. As dynamic as the Celtics defense is, when we start talking about playoffs and we start talking about adjustments, yes, they switch out aggressively. However, ball movement still counts. And you're going to have a star on the other team. In this case, it was Luka Doncic, who was able to move the ball quick enough to find Dorian Finney-Smith, who went off for 19 points and hit 2 big threes down the stretch of that ball game to send the Boston Celtics home or leave them home with a loss. And so when I think about the Bucks or the Celtics, we have not given enough credit for a team that has been there, done that, and it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that ring. All of those things, because of the because of the Milwaukee Bucks' ability to also defend and their experience in a series, I love what Boston is doing. They're 14-4 on the road since the turn of the new year. However, when we start talking about playoffs, they do not have the recent history that gives me confidence. And so I agree with JJ that the Bucks are still the team to beat. Yeah, they lost the other night without Giannis. That's a given. They're 8-2 in their last 2. The Celtics are 9-1 in their last 10, or in their last 10 rather. So to me, yes, we are thrilled with what we're seeing from the Celtics, and it has been a thing of beauty. But again, in a series where you're going to go head to head, to me, the defense will always be at a disadvantage to a degree when we're talking about some of the more prolific scorers leading their teams in the Eastern Conference because you have to react. That's just the nature of the game of basketball. And so, on both sides, I'm still going with the Bucks right now.
JJ, before you jump back in here, I just want to mention, so nobody's talked about the Sixers or the Brooklyn Nets in this conversation. Just to be clear, we've got Miami, Milwaukee, and Boston.
Again, is it possible? Yes. But there's more question marks about those teams than there are the other three teams.
I just want to remind the audience that we're just talking about those three.
I brought up the Celtics half-court offense.
Yeah.
And you bring up their defense. And again, I give credit. They have a great defense. Best defense in the league. They're very disruptive. The thing with the Heat and the Bucks, they have the defenders. Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, Giannis, Jimmy Butler, P.J. Tucker. They have the defenders to make life very tough on Tatum and Brown in the half court. But the big problem here is this. 9 games in the season, I came on this show, and you were talking about the fact that the Warriors were going to win the championship. Phoenix Suns window is closed. You get caught up in the moment. This is the reality. You get caught up in the moment. So yes, right now, Kim K and Pete Davidson, they're dating. But you're the type of person who thinks they're going to date forever. Things are going to change.
Oh, no, I don't
Things are going to change, and things can change
so
very quickly.
So wrong you are.
Things can change very quickly.
I don't believe that at all. But I'm not going to knock the brother for having a good time now. My point to you is this. At the end of the day, when you look at the situation in Boston, first of all, let's understand something. You start off at the beginning of the season. I haven't jumped off the Warriors bandwagon. The only thing that has happened to the Warriors is that they've gotten injured. That's it. If it wasn't for the injuries, I wouldn't be concerned one bit about the Warriors coming out of the West. And I truly, truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. Monica, to get back to your point, you actually made a weak argument because you had 2 better examples to use other than the loss to Dallas. How about losing to Indiana, which Boston did? How about losing to the Detroit Pistons, which Boston did? Now, obviously, it was the second of back-to-back games.
It's not weaker. I'm talking about playoff teams, but continue.
But they lost both of those games. That's all I'm trying to say. Those are the only 3 games they've lost pretty much in the last 22, 23 games. So we got all of that. Getting to you, JJ, I would tell you, ain't no prisoner of the moment. You watch what you see and what have you. I sat up there and I'm looking at Boston. I'm like, I didn't see this defense coming like this. I got to give credit where credit is due. I also didn't see Philadelphia and Daryl Morey just shredding their own bench. Yeah, they performed last night without Embiid and Harden, and that was nice to see. But them brothers got to show up come playoff times. It's immense pressure on Harden. We all know that. When I look at Miami, what do we say about Miami? Great culture, great team, great talent. Who closes for them? Definitively speaking,